You keep waiting to feel ready. And that waiting has a shape. You start with energy, then emotion fades. And your motivation dies like a phone battery at 12. You don't fail because you're lazy. You fail because you're trying to run your life on mood. There's a reason your motivation dies by Wednesday, and it is not discipline. It's a mechanism. Your brain treats feeling ready like proof. So the moment the proof disappears, you cancel the plan. You're not building a habit. You're bargaining with your feelings. You're saying, if I feel inspired, I'll do it. If I don't, I'll wait. That bargain is comfortable. It also guarantees you'll stay stuck because feelings don't show up on a schedule. Think about it like this. If your car only moves when the engine is roaring, you'll never drive. You need the starter to work even when the engine isn't loud yet. Habits are the starter. They don't rely on hype. They rely on a decision you make before your emotions get a vote. When you wait to feel ready, you make emotion the driver and you become the passenger. So here is the first habit, small enough to ignore, but consistent enough to win. Tonight, pick one task you want to change one. Then decide the smallest version that takes under 2 minutes. Not the whole workout, not the full plan, not the perfect draft. 2 minutes. Same time, every day if you can, but at least same trigger. Use a moment you already have, like after you brush your teeth or when you sit at your desk. Your job is not to finish. Your job is to start. After the 2 minutes are done, you can stop. That's the trick. You're teaching your brain that action is safe, even when motivation is low. You're replacing I'll begin when I feel ready with I begin on purpose. And the next time emotion is missing, your habit still turns the key. You don't need a new personality. You need a smaller door to walk through, even on bad days. Because the door is the habit, and the habit doesn't ask for permission from your mood. Next, we'll lock in the trigger that makes starting almost automatic. You keep waiting to feel ready. You want T. You don't need confidence. First, you need proof. Let me show you how this works when you're stuck. A few years ago, I watched a friend work on a project for weeks. The plan was solid. The ideas were great. The problem was the start line never moved. Every day, they opened the file, stared at the first page, and waited for momentum to arrive like a guest at the door. It never did. By Wednesday, their excitement was gone, and by Friday, the whole thing felt heavier than it should. Not because they lacked talent, because inertia had control. Here's the mechanism. When you start big, your brain treats the task like a threat. It scans for risk. It slows you down. When you start tiny, your brain treats it like safety. No drama. No negociation. It doesn't ask for motivation. It just counts the motion as real progress. So habit 1 is the 60-second start. You're going to choose one task you actually want to move forward. Then you shrink it until it's almost embarrassing. Under 2 minutes. And you set the trigger from your real life, not from your imagination after you brush your teeth or when you sit at your desk. The first action must be something you can complete without thinking. You'll do it for 60 seconds. Then you're allowed to stop. Yes, stop. That rule matters. Finishing is optional, but the key turning is not. You're training your brain to associate the habit with relief, not punishment. You're telling it, we begin even when it feels flat. Over time, your body learns the pattern and the mind has to catch up. Today, set a timer for 60 seconds and perform the smallest version of your chosen task right after the trigger moment. Start before you can talk yourself out of it, and let the timer give you permission to stop. That's how momentum stops being a feeling and starts being a habit, and it begins the moment you act, not the moment you feel like it. Now we build the next rung of the ladder. Habit 2 is one-page output daily, not one page someday. One page today. Your life doesn't change from ideas floating around your head. It changes from words, numbers, or decisions that can't be argued with because they exist on paper. There is a reason your motivation dies by Wednesday. You never produce evidence that you're moving. You keep working in invisible ways, thinking, planning, organizing, researching until your brain concludes you're stuck. Then it stops investing energy. Momentum needs proof. It needs a page you can point to. Here's the mechanism. One page removes the decision. You stop bargaining with yourself about what counts. You don't have to finish a book. You don't have to win an entire project. You only have to produce a single tangible unit. One page is small enough to start even when you're tired, and big enough that you can see the curve of progress. Imagine you're trying to write. You sit down and you open a blank document. The goal is not write a chapter. The goal is write one page. One page means about 250 to 500 words. or whatever fills a printed page. If you get stuck, you write the next honest sentence anyway. If you're bored, you keep going until the page is full. You're not auditioning for greatness. You're training consistency. Execution rule is simple and precise. Same start time, same trigger. Then stop when the page is done. If you finish in 20 minutes, you still stop. If it takes longer, you still aim to complete by the daily end. The win, ISNT effort. The win is output that appears. And yes, you want to edit. Editing feels productive because it's familiar, but editing before output is how people work for weeks and end up with nothing new. Your job is to create the first draft page daily. Then you can polish later. Today is for producing, not perfecting. Tomorrow you will feel the difference because you'll look at yesterday's page and realize you actually moved. That's what inertia hates. Now your discipline, your visibility. The next section keeps that visibility going, but it starts with what you do with the page after you finish it. When you keep waiting to feel ready, you won T. Not because you're broken, because your environment is fighting your brain every morning. Friction is the silent killer of habits. It doesn't shout, don't do it. It just makes the first step heavier than it should be. If you want a habit that lasts, you have to reduce the steps your future self has to stumble through. That means removing obstacles before you're motivated. Don't find time. Make the time obvious. Put the pen where your hand already goes. Leave the shoes by the door. Charge the device at night on the same outlet you'll stand in front of tomorrow. Now you need a trigger, not a wish. A cue is what your brain can't ignore. You don't wake up and decide to be consistent. You attach the habit to something you already do automatically. After you brew your coffee, you open the document. After you sit down at your desk, you start the timer. After the shower, you put on the first layer of clothes for the day, and you do the first 5 minutes of the page. The cue tells your mind, this is not a debate. This is the next station. But even triggers get crushed when your willpower gets tired. That's where pre-commitment comes in. You lock the decision in place before the resistance shows up. Pre-commitment is you choosing a rule so simple you can't bargain with it later. For example, when the trigger happens, you start immediately, no prepping, no scrolling, no just checking one thing. You can be messy. You can be slow. You cannot negotiate starting. Here's the part people skip. Slips aren't failures. They're information. You need a micro reset that kicks in the moment you miss. So one bad day doesn't turn into a broken week. The reset has one job. Shorten the distance between I messed up and I'm back on track. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel guilty enough. Right after, you do the smallest version of the habit that still counts. One honest paragraph. 5 sentences. 1-page minimum rule becomes 1-page attempt. Start again while the excuse is still warm, because excuses cool down fast when you move. So today's plan is 1 clean chain. Reduce friction for your page habit before you sit down. Make a trigger you can repeat without thinking. Pre-commit with a rule that removes negotiation. Then if you miss, you execute a micro reset immediately, 1 small restart. Right away. The goal ISNT to become a different person. The goal is to build a system where your next action is the easiest one you could take. You don't need more strength. You need fewer decisions. Once you accept that, you stop trying to find motivation and you start training your environment to push you forward. Even when your brain wants to argue. Train your environment means you make the right action easier than the wrong one. You remove the distance between intention and behavior. If you're doing a page habit, your book can't live behind a stack of laundry. It has to be the next thing your eyes land on. Your phone can't be the fastest path to distraction. Move it, lock it, hide it. You're not being dramatic. You're reducing the number of temptations your willpower has to defeat. Then you schedule check-ins. Because consistency ISNT, a feeling it's a review. Set a specific time every day or every other day where you answer one question. Did I do the habit or did I not? No speeches, no moralmente. Just data. If you want a system that holds, you need a routine that catches drift early. Before drift turns into a new identity. 1 small rewards lock behavior in faster than you think. Not big prizes, tiny ones that tell your brain, this worked. After your page, you earn something immediate and harmless. A good coffee, a short stretch, 1 song, a clean room minute. The reward is the bridge between effort and satisfaction. So your brain stops treating the habit like a tax and starts treating it like a win. Once a week, you do a weekly review that's brutally simple. You look at what actually happened, not what you plan to happen. You circle the one moment you slipped, and you adjust the environment or the trigger to make that moment harder next time. This is how consistency becomes automatic. Not by wishing, by tightening the bolts every week. One here, your today action. Pick one place where your habit should happen. Then make it easier right now. Set it up so you can start in under 10 seconds. Then set your check-in time on your calendar for later today. And promise yourself that if you miss, you'll micro-reset immediately with one-page attempt. Before your excuse is time to cool, the system isn't extra work. It's you finally building a life where I will doesn't depend on I feel. Your life doesn't change because you wanted it hard. It changes because you removed friction, shortened the start, and reviewed the truth. Phones got locked. Check-ins got scheduled. Rewards got made immediate. Weekly drift got caught early. That's the whole game. Now, stop collecting motivation like it's a hobby. Do the one habit in the one place, starting in under 10 seconds today. Then add your check-in time so your effort has a scoreboard. Choose the habit, set it up, hit start, and let the results teach you what discipline actually feels like.